හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Sunday, the 17th of December 2023. Words work. President urges political leaders to exhibit responsibility in their approach with regards to the International Monetary Fund program. Growth spurt. Positive economic growth to take place in the economy next year, says central bank governor. Expects a surplus in the country's current account this year. Rains, plains. Inclement weather in the northern province. Over 6,000 people affected.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
නියම මෝල්ට් සාරය සමග මැලිබන් මෝල්ට් දැන් රුපියල් 750ක් පමණයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to AdaDerana's English News First at 9 here on a once-in-a-while dry Sunday evening. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Let's take a look at our news stories for the day, starting with our top story right now. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the country is now able to receive foreign aid again as the country officially progresses out of bankruptcy status following the progress on the debt restructuring program with the International Monetary Fund. The president made these remarks while participating in the inauguration of the Karaliya Convention Centre and Performing Arts in Kandy this morning. He also stressed that although several individuals criticized the reform agenda of the incumbent government openly, none of them took up the challenge and responsibility of making tough decisions during the time of the crisis. Meanwhile, in an update following the progress of the debt restructuring program with the IMF, the government plans to have discussions with private creditors in London.
The inauguration of the Karaliya Convention Centre and Performing Arts was held in Kandy this morning. The construction of the Karaliya Convention Centre and Performing Arts by the Kandy Municipal Council commenced in 2018 with an expenditure of nearly 600 million rupees from the Municipal Council Fund. This Conference and Performing Arts Centre aims to address the city's infrastructure gap by providing auditorium facilities and exhibition halls for art and sculpture exhibitions. President Ranil Wickremesinghe inaugurated the building complex by unveiling the commemorative plaque.
පළමුවෙන් IMF එක සාකච්ඡා කළා. දැන් අපි මේ බංකොලොත් භාවයෙන් අවසන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒත් තව විශාල දුරක් යන්න තියෙනවා. දැන් අපිට තියෙන්නේ ලන්ඩන් නුවරට ගිහින් විශේෂයෙන්ම ඒ පිළිබඳව මේ පුද්ගලික නායකරුවන් සමග සාකච්ඡා කරන්න සියල්ලම විශ්ල ගන්න පුළුවන් කියන විශ්වාසයෙන් තමයි අද අපි සියලු දෙනාම. එසේ හෝ මේක අවසන් කරපු නිසා දැන් ආපහු අපිට විදේශ ආධාර ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. කොච්චර අමාරුවත් මං කපි යමු ඉදිරියට. පළමුවෙන්ම අපිට දුන්න ඉලක්කය දලදේශීය නිෂ්පාදනයෙන් 10.4. 2024 අපිට ඒක අල්ලන්න බෑ. ඉතින් අපි ගිහින් ආපහු වාද විවාද කළා IMF එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කළා වාද කළා සටන් කළා කොහොම හරි ඒගොල්ලෝ එකඟ වුණා ඒ වෙනුවට 2024 ඉලක්කය හැටියට දලදේශීය නිෂ්පාදනයෙන් 9.2ක ඉලක්කය දාන්න. පුළුවන් නම් කරන්න නැත්නම් බංකොලොත් භාවයේ 2024ත් ගෙනියන්න උවමනයි කියලා. 2024 කරනවා නම් අපේ ආදායමෙන් අපිට බිලියන 534ක හිඟයක් තිබුණා. මට මේ 534 උවමනා නැහැ කියනවනම් අස්වැසුමයි පඩි වැඩි කිරීමයි ඉවත් කරන්න තියෙනවා. මම හිතුවා නෑ අපි ඒක කරන්න උවමනයි කියලා. ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී IMF කිව්වා එහෙනම් ඉතින් ඔයගොල්ලෝ තියෙන්නේ බදු වැඩි කරන එක. දැන් ඒක අමාරු තත්ත්වයක්. බදු වැඩි කරනවද නැද්ද? බදු වැඩි කරොත් ජනප්‍රියභාවය අඩු වෙනවා. ආර්ථිකය නගිනවා අපේ බංකොලොත් භාවය නැති වෙනවා. එහෙනම් කොහොමද බදු වැඩි කරන්නේ? එතන තිබුණ එකම බද්ද තමයි වැට් බද්ද. ඉතින් අමාරුවෙන් හරි වෙන එකක් නැහැ කියලා ඔක්කොමලා එකඟ වුණා. අමාරු විශේෂඥයෝ දේශපාලඥයෝ කියනවා IMF එකට ගිහින් එයාලි කතා කරනවා. මේක මහා බොරුවන්නේ. විරුද්ධය කියන්න ඕනේ. කොහොමද මේ මුදල් හොයන්නේ? කොහොමද බංකොලොත් භාවයෙන් ඉවත් වෙන්නේ? කවුරුත් වගකීම ගන්න ලෑස්ති නැහැ. කවුරුත් අමාරු තීරණ ගන්න ලෑස්ති නැහැ. ඒකයි මැයි මාසේ ගිය අවුරුද්දේ කවුරුවත් හිටියේ නැත්තේ මේ වගකීම බාර ගන්න. පැත්තක ඉන්න මට ගන්න උනේ ඒ නිසා.
Meanwhile, joining the Badula District Special Coordinating Committee meeting yesterday, President Ranil Wickremesinghe instructed the relevant officials to acquire unused land owned by the Railway Department for other development activities.
මොකක්ද ඉඩම් ගැන තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ?
දුම්රිය දෙපාර්තමේ ඉඩම් අත්පත් කර ගැනීම ඇල්ල සංචාරක කලාපයේ සංවර්ධනය සඳහා නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරී සංවර්ධන සැලැස්මට අනුව දුම්රිය දෙපාර්තමේ සතු ඉඩම් භාවිතයට නොගැනීම.
මේ ඔක්කොම රජයේ ඉඩම් දුම්රිය දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව කියලා පුද්ගලිකම එකක් නැහැ. ඉතින් පාවිච්චි නොකරන ඉඩම් අපි අනික් වැඩ කටයුතුට අර ගන්නවා.
එතන අක්කර දෙකක් තියෙනවා සර් අපි හඳුනගෙන තිබ්බා. පස්සේ අපි සාකච්ඡා කරා පහුගිය දවසේ. එතකොට දුම්රිය දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව කිව්වේ දුම්රිය දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව ඒ ඇක්ට් එක වෙනස් කරලා සංවර්ධනය කරන්න.
මේ මොනවද ඇක්ට් එක වෙනස් කරන්නේ? නොකයි අරගෙන දාන්නකො. කවුද කියලා තියෙන්නේ? මේ ඔක්කොම නිකන් අල්ලගෙන ඉන්න මුකුත් නොකරක දුම්රිය දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ තියෙන ඉඩම් උවමනා නැති ටික අරගෙන අපි දැන් සංවර්ධනයට බෙදන්න යන්නේ. ඉතින් අවුරුදු 3ක් අපිට සංවර්ධනයක් තිබුණේ නැහැ. අපිට තාමත් මුදල් නැහැ. අපි දැන් ආරම්භ කරන ටිකක් හොයාගෙන විදේශ ආධාර දෙන එක ආරම්භ කරන්නට යනවා. ඒක එන අවුරුද්දේ අපිට ඒ අය එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරලා පටන් ගන්න තියෙනවා. ව්‍යාකෘති ටික අපි එන අවුරුදු පළවෙනි මාස 2-3 වෙනකොට අපිට දැනුම් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් දැන් තියෙන්නේ බහැලා ඒ වැඩ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කරන්න.
With Sri Lanka posting an economic growth of 1.6% in the third quarter of this year, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe expressed hope of achieving 3% economic growth in the next year. Speaking to Indivari Amawata during our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, the central bank chief said that Sri Lanka is on track to record a current account surplus in 2023 after several years, and added that the usable reserves in the country will be around $3 billion by year end. Further, the central bank governor said that measures such as the 450 billion rupee allocation of state funds for bank recapitalization are in place to ensure the public's confidence in the country's banking system.
2023, I believe, was the toughest year in terms of putting the framework, in creating and putting the country in a right policy framework towards 2024 and beyond. Do you think you were successful in bringing the challenges together, analyzing them and really putting a framework in place, or is there more work to be done in 2024?
There's obviously some more work to be done. That's we have to admit. This is not the end of the game. If you look at the IMF report that was published after the completion of first review, it would certainly say out of the commitment that we have made with the creditors and with the IMF and globally, we have met almost 99% of commitments have already been delivered by the completion of the first review. Then we have certain other commitments going forward in 2024. Next part, important one, is to have an agreement in principle with commercial creditors. That's the next important step. And beyond that, there are certain commitments in terms of policies, implement certain reforms. All these things are next steps. But important one is that we have made a good progress. 2022 was the worst year in terms of economic performance. 2023, even Q1, 11.5% negative contraction, and continuously 6 quarters of economic contraction. Now, yesterday numbers prove that we are in the right path and we are coming out of the recession. And first time after 6 quarters, Q3 grew by 1.6%. So this is a positive sign. We are in the recovery path. And we need to move steadily and continuously in this path. And 2024 is an important year for us to come back out of the crisis.
With the anticipated Q4 performance, where do you expect Sri Lanka to end the year? And 2024, what are the target numbers?
In 2023, Q3 plus 1.6%. Q4 will be certainly much higher positive growth that we have all early indicators say economy is recovering back to normal situation. And overall, whole year as a result of negative growth in the first half, so it could still be a negative, but close to negative 3%. But going forward 2024, I'm sure for the whole year, I would expect at least about 3% growth.
What are the challenges you anticipate on the Sri Lankan economy?
Yeah, there are certain headwinds, especially coming from the external sector. For example, now this year, global demand for export is much lower than what all expected. From Sri Lanka, all the other countries, exporting countries like China, India, export growth has been low. Plus, there are a lot of other concerns in terms of Israel-Gaza war. As a result, there would have been acceleration of oil prices to much higher levels. But luckily, that has now been subdued to a certain extent. Stabilizing, I don't think oil prices would be a bigger challenge going forward for the next year. From Sri Lanka side, positive part is there's tourism is obviously picking up much faster than what we thought even earlier. That will give some cushion or buffer for foreign exchange earnings, and also remittances. As we have seen, there's a significant growth. So some lowering export we can expect, export earnings, but there's a cushion in terms of trade-off. There's support coming from remittance and tourism will certainly help for us to maintain what we call current account. This year, 2020 will be current account surplus for the first time for long years. Even next year, we are expecting the much kind of a lower or smaller current account deficit, which will help us to maintain some stability in terms of exchange rate, for us to be able to build up our reserves to a much more comfortable level. So, I mean, this year also is a significant improvement in terms of foreign exchange reserves that we are building up. As from almost zero levels, we have been almost like usable reserves well above 2 billion. It will be close to 3 billion by the end of the year with IMF money, World Bank aid money coming in.
Banking sector, does the central bank sort of like monitor the kind of risk potential, and how is the central bank proactively responding to this?
This is our direct responsibility, central bank, to maintain financial system stability, especially in deposit-taking institutions like banks and non-bank financial institutions. If you look at last year, banks, finance sector were in a very difficult situation. If you can remember that, there a lot of talk about the losing deposit of money, and the debt restructuring will have impact on deposits. That's why we have been very carefully managed that situation last year. It's our responsibility to ensure banking sector remains stable, so that all the money by the public deposits are safe and secure. So we have been able to do that. Even going forward, there will be still some stresses. For example, external debt restructuring. There are local banks; those are holding interest foreign bonds, and there are certain foreign currency debt by petroleum corporation taken by the government that also will have to be restructured. So in addition to non-performing loans, there are other areas where some impact on the banking sector. That is why, if you can remember, the budget announced allocated 450 billion. If there is a need for recapitalization of the two state banks or the banks, government has already, in our request, based on our assessment, there is a buffer created through the budget, the public sector money, 450 billion, in case with the restructuring, if there is a support, there is a recapitalization coming needed for the banks. That will ensure going forward bank system stability, which is most important. I can give the assurance that this country, the difficult time is now over. Going forward, we'll have a stable financial system that will facilitate growth, that will provide credit for the businesses, that will secure deposit of the public. That's important.
While highlighting the government's commitment to continue the reform agenda, State Minister of Higher Education Dr. Suren Raghavan says that there's no safety net if the country fails to achieve the expected outcomes of the agenda. Addressing a media briefing recently, the Higher Education State Minister called on the people to be mindful when casting their vote in the upcoming elections.
How concerned are you on all your, these efforts of reforms reforms in the economy being reversed because people are not happy? When it comes for an election, they might vote for this Kaiwaru Karya. How concerned are you?
As a citizen of this country, as somewhat academic, others don't want to accept, at least a person who can intellectually contribute to the benefit of this country. And that's the challenge. And that challenge is in the hands of the people of this country. Single-handedly, I can't. Because there is no falling safety net anywhere if we fail this.
Because there is no guarantee that we will not reverse this, right?
So we want, as a state, we want to continue. As state mechanisms, we want to continue. As state officials and politicians, we are adhere to that, right? We are very strong. But election is a democratic thing.
Yeah, but in the election, these are the same thing used against the...
Yes, so that is why I'm saying there is exactly a danger of democracy, right? Each party can argue, and the people whoever believes the argument. Hitler was elected first time. He never captured power. Second term, he was elected as the most popular. So you can elect most popularly the wrong person who can take this country to an absolute war, economic degradation, and put us in absolute political hell.
Meanwhile, independent parliamentarian Professor G.L. Pires raised concern over the taxes imposed by the government on the members of the public. He says that the government must understand the pain of the people, highlighting that there is a limit to which people can afford to pay their taxes. With that, here are some comments expressed in the political arena.
අපිට දැන් අමතක වෙන්නත් පටන් අරගෙන රටේ තිබ්බ තත්ත්වය. ඒ තත්ත්වය වෙනස් කළා බංකලොත් රට අද ඒ බංකලොත් භාවයෙන් මුදව ගන්න කටයුතු කරගෙන ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍යාර මුදල් දෙවනි මුදල් ප්‍රමාණයක් ලබා දෙන්න කටයුතු කරා.
ඊ අවුරුද්දේ ලබා ගන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙච්ච ප්‍රමාණයට වඩා දෙගුණයක් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ අවුරුද්දේ. 100% තිබිච්ච සමහර ඒවා 118ට ගෙනලා තියෙනවා. දැන් මේක සාධාරණද අසාධාරණද?
ඇත්තටම පීඩනයක් තියෙනවා. මේ බදුබර ජනතාවට දරන්න අමාරුයි. ඒක නිසා අපි ආදායම් වැඩි අයගේ බදු ප්‍රමාණයත් වැඩි කරලා තියෙනවා.
නැති පුද්ගලයාගෙන් තමයි පුළුවන් තරම් අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ. තියෙන පුද්ගලයාට අත තියලා නැහැ. ඒකට වගකීම කිසියම් ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය ආරමුදලට ආරෝපණය කරන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. රජයට ආදායම අවශ්‍යයි කියලා ජනතාවට ගෙවන්න පුළුවන් සීමාවක් තියෙනවා.
අපි දකින්නේ මේක පුජ්‍යල සාධකයටම ලබු කරන්න බෑ. පුජ්‍යලයක් නරකයි නම් වෙන පුජ්‍යලයක් දාලා කරන්න පුළුවන්. මේක පුජ්‍යලයාගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි තියෙන්නේ. මේක තියෙන්නේ ක්‍රමයේ ප්‍රශ්නයක්. සිස්ටම් එක වෙනස් කරගන්න ඕනේ. ඒන්න දැන් ඉස්සරහට ඕනේ අනුර කුමාර සහෝදරයා කියන පුජ්‍යලයාම නෙවෙයි. අනුර සහෝදරයාත් එක්ක හොඳ ටීම් එකකුත් ඉන්න ඕනේ. ඒ සිස්ටම් එක වෙනස් කරන්න ඕන්ට වැඩ පිළිවෙලකුත් තියෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ එන පුජ්‍යලයන්ගෙන් පළක් නැහැ කියලායි අපි කියන්නේ. දිනන එක අමාරු නෑ. මේ රට හදන එකයි අමාරු වැඩි.
Moving on to other news, while torrential rainfall affects several parts of the island, the Irrigation Department issued amber flood warnings to low-lying areas of Malwatu Oya, urging the residents to remain vigilant. Meanwhile, the District Disaster Management Centre stated that more than 6,000 people of 2,142 families in the northern province remain affected by the ongoing inclement weather.
As the tropical rains ensued over parts of the island, the northern province was among the most affected. Particularly, residents of the Manthe East Divisional Secretariat in the Mullaitiya district were inconvenienced as the area remained inundated today. Several reservoirs, including the Mutian Kadu Reservoir in the Mullaitiya district, are currently overflowing. Against this backdrop, the District Disaster Management Centre said that 6,719 individuals of 2,142 families residing in Mullaitiya, Kilinochchi and Mana are affected as a result of the inclement weather conditions. Due to heavy rains in the north-central province, the Department of Irrigation issued amber flood warnings to low-lying areas of Malbatoya as the water capacity continued to rise. Per the warning issued, residents of the low-lying areas of Malbatoya in Vengala Cheddikulam, Madu and Nanadhan Divisional Secretariat divisions were advised to remain vigilant of floods. Further, traffic in the area was also disrupted as nearby roads were inundated. In the meantime, 14 sluice gates of the Rajangane Reservoir were opened, releasing 15,500 cubic feet of water per second. 2 sluice gates of the Angamo Reservoir were also opened as the water levels continued to rise. As continued rainfall rose water levels, all 6 sluice gates of Nachadu Reservoir were opened, releasing 2,200 cubic feet of water per second. A sluice gate of the Mausa-Kala Reservoir was also opened this afternoon owing to the heavy rains. Meanwhile, 6 sluice gates of the Lunugambhe Reservoir were opened, releasing 3,150 cubic feet of water per second to Kirindioya. In the meantime, taking the prevailing weather patterns into account, the Met Department predicts that rain over 75 millimeters can be expected in parts of western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces tomorrow. The Met Department further stated that misty conditions can be expected in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and southern provinces in the morning. Meanwhile, Castleway Reservoir began to overflow at midnight yesterday due to heavy rainfalls in the area. Accordingly, it is reported that Vimala Surendra, Laksapana, New Laksapana, Kanden and Polpitiya hydropower stations are currently generating electricity at maximum capacity. Taking the heavy rainfalls into account, the National Building Research Organisation issued amber landslide warnings to 6 districts. Warning level 2 landslide warnings as such were issued to the Badulla, Kalutara, Kandy, Kegal, Mathura and Ratnapura districts.
Under the Judicial Services Commission's annual transfer procedure, measures have been initiated to transfer 54 magistrates and district judges with effect from the 1st of January 2024. Accordingly, the district judges of Kaduwela, Pugoda, Monragala, Maravila, Kalutara, Matale, Elpitiya, Puttalam, Kilinochchi and Anuradhapura have been repositioned under the annual transfer procedure. Meanwhile, according to the Judicial Service Commission, the magistrates of Homagama, Nigambo, Bandaravala, Norelia, Batiklo, Kegol, Elpitiya, Balapitiya, Madavachiya, Nochiagama, Naula, Anamadua, Agunukola Pelasa and Kahatagas Digilia have also received transfers. Welcome back. As the country's tourism industry seems to be making a rapid recovery, over 73,000 tourists have visited Sri Lanka during the first 2 weeks of December alone. The island recorded a total of over 1.35 million tourist arrivals this year as of the 13th of December. According to the data issued by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, records indicate a significant rise in tourist arrivals in December so far compared to the 91,961 total tourist arrivals recorded in December of last year. The number of Indian tourists topped the list with the most arrivals in December so far with 14,704 arrivals. The number represented 20% of the total arrivals in December 2023 so far. The number of Russian tourists tallied came in second on the list of most arrivals with 10,573 arrivals, while 7,250 tourist arrivals were recorded from the UK. Substantial number of tourist arrivals were also recorded from Germany, China and Australia. Sri Lanka's Purchasing Managers Index for the month of November rose to an index value of 57 from 49.5 a month earlier, driven by seasonal factors. The service sector PMI for the month of November, meanwhile, showed an index value of 59.4 in November 2023, indicating a continued expansion in services activities. The Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index showed an increase in November 2023, recording an index value of 57. The central bank said that considering the sub-indices, employment and stock of purchases increased on a month-on-month basis. Suppliers' delivery time lengthened during November compared to the previous month, indicating the tightened supply conditions. The overall increase in new orders was mainly driven by the manufacture of food and beverages and textile and apparel sectors, and the increase in production was largely due to the manufacture of the food and beverages sector, owing to the seasonal demand. The overall expectation for manufacturing activities remained positive for the next 3 months, mainly attributed to the gradual recovery in economic activities. However, firms are concerned about tax revisions which will be effective from January 2024. On a global level, the manufacturing PMI recorded a value of 49.3 in November 2023, with an increase of 0.5 index points from October. Manufacturing PMIs of China, India and Singapore improved at a higher pace in November 2023. However, manufacturing PMIs of the Eurozone, the UK and USA deteriorated in November 2023 compared to the previous month. In the services sector, PMI recorded an index value of 59.4 in November 2023, indicating an accelerated expansion in service activities. New businesses increased in November 2023 compared to October 2023, particularly with the increase observed in financial services, professional services and accommodation and food and beverages subsectors. Business activities continued to expand in November 2023, showing positive developments in several subsectors. Meanwhile, employment increased as new recruitments were made to meet the seasonal demand, whereas backlogs of work continued to decline during November. On the global level, services PMI posted 50.6 in November 2023, signaling an expansion in global services activities. Services Purchasing Managers Indices of China, India, the US and Japan indicated that their service sectors expanded in November 2023 compared to the previous month. In a bid to meet the demand for eggs during the festive season, the Sri Lanka State Trading Corporation announced that a consignment of 15 million eggs is expected to arrive in Sri Lanka subsequent to the approval granted for the import of eggs. The corporation further announced that arrangements have been made to distribute 10 million quality assured eggs already imported to Satosa outlets today. Despite the eggs being sold earlier this month at a rate between 40 rupees and 50 rupees, eggs are currently sold at between 55 and 65 rupees in the local market. The Minister of Trade, Commerce and Food Security, Nalin Fernando, said that permission has been granted to import eggs from India during the next 4 months to control the abrupt and unexpected price increase of eggs in the market. EY Global Delivery Services Sri Lanka said that it has entered into a partnership with the Sri Lanka Association for Software and Service Companies as the exclusive platinum sponsor of the Emerging Tech webinar series. With that, let's take a look at corporate sector news for the day.
EY Global Delivery Services Sri Lanka, which is a part of the global EY network of service delivery centers, has joined hands with the Sri Lanka Association for Software and Service Companies as the exclusive platinum sponsor of the Emerging Tech webinar series. The object of the collaboration is to develop and nurture the next generation talent pool for the information technology sector in the country, in line with the Ministry of Technology's agenda in advancing the national digital economy. Meanwhile, HMB Assurance said Dilshan Peter Niros Rodrigo, who was a non-independent non-executive director, has intimated his desire to step down from his office as director. The firm said the board of directors has approved his resignation and the decision, and that he will no longer be a director of the company with effect from the 11th of December 2023. In the meantime, CT Holdings said the firm has appointed Asitha Talwata as a senior independent director of the company. The firm said he will be taking over the position officially from the 14th of December 2023 onwards.
That's all the news I have for you for this evening. Join us again tomorrow on Sri Lanka's premier news channel, First at 9, for more English news. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Have a blessed week ahead. Good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.